let's get started. Thank you guys for coming. So this is going to be a workshop. So if you have not created a developer org or have one available that has Einstein Analytics, please go to this link and create it. You still have a little time because there's a few just intro slides, and then we'll dig in, get hands-on, and create a dashboard and a few other things. So I am working for Salesforce, as you might have seen on the previous slide. So I do have to show this forward-looking statement. I'm sure you've seen it before. But basically, if you are making any purchases, make sure you base your decision on what is currently available in the session. The sound came on. OK. Anyway, enough about this slide. So my name is Rikke Hovgaard, and I am Einstein Analytics Solution Architect with Salesforce. I'm part of our ACE team, so that's Analytics Center of Excellence, and we are part out of product. So I do a lot of these onboarding sessions. I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for about 7 years, starting out with core and marketing automation, and the last 4 years I've been working with Einstein Analytics. So hopefully you know a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. Again, the link here. If you still need to get your developer org, I try to keep them on all the slides. So yeah. And with me today, I have Kate. Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kate Toporski. I am also on the ACE team with Rikke. I'm a program coordinator for our customer training program. Used to be called Academy, or used to be called
Campfire.
Well, yeah. It used to be called Campfires, and now it's called Academies. They're 1 to 2 day free training sessions for Einstein Analytics and Discovery. Before I worked on the ACE team, I was a writer for Trailhead, and I worked on Einstein Prediction Builder. And now I'm working on the ACE team. Yeah. So happy to be here and helping out.
Yeah, so Kate will be helping, just walking around if anybody is stuck. But please, this is hands-on, so if anything, there's any questions, I'm happy for you to just raise your hand and say, hey, I'm stuck. Can you just repeat that step? And we'll go through that. Cool. So what will we be doing today is just we will be starting out with building a data set so we have something to actually work from. Once we have that, we'll start going ahead and building or designing a dashboard. So you should have something fully working by the end of the session. Yeah, so basically, this is the slides that I have as a backup. Not really a backup. I'm going to give you these slides afterwards. So these are kind of just walkthrough of what we're supposed to do. But that's going to be boring to go through those slides. So we're going to go all hands-on. So excuse me, but I'm sitting down now, so it's easier to kind of navigate around. So let's just go into Salesforce in your newly created developer orgs. Some of the people that just arrived, do you have an Einstein Analytics developer org? Yes, everybody? No? So just going back here to the slide, that URL, if you can go and create your own developer org, that would be good. Do you mind? Yeah. Cool. So once you're in, you should have something like this. And that's all good. There is a few things we can do in the settings. We're not going to be doing that today, but just heads up, that's in here where we're actually managing everything. But what we're going to be doing is go up to this app launcher, and we're going to click on that, and you should have something here called Analytics Studio. So if you go ahead and click on that, and we're going to be heading into Analytics Studio. Is this OK in terms of size? Do you want me to zoom in a little bit? It's all good? Good. So the first thing we'll be doing is just create an app. So an app is a folder where we can store everything into. So we're going to go up here in the Create. And you can click on the Create app. We do have a lot of predefined templates. We're not going to be doing that today, but I will encourage you to have a look at some of the predefined templates that we have. But we will be going in and creating a blank app. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do, of course, is give it a name. So I'm going to call mine London's Calling. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter as long as you remember it. And then go ahead and click on Create once you're done. And now you can see we have a lonely app. Yeah, oh, by the way, I forgot to say, sometimes when we click here, if you're not on that step, it will say, hey, it's blocking it from opening, so just make sure that if you're stuck on that step, that you're allowing it for pop-ups. Cool. So our app is a little lonely, so what we're going to be doing now is, of course, create a data set. So a data set is basically our data from, in this case, going to be Salesforce, but you can do anything, basically, and you'll see that in the next step. So if we click on the Create button up here in the top right corner, there is this option to create a data set. So go ahead and click on that. Everybody with me? Yeah, just checking. So you'll see, as I said, there's a few different ways we can create data sets. The one we're going to do today is we're going to click on the Salesforce data, and we're going to create a data set that we're calling MyOps. The next thing we have to do is we have to add this into a data flow. So this is basically the mechanism that is taking it from Salesforce and transforming it into a data set. And we're going to just choose the default Salesforce data flow. So go ahead and select that one. Okay? And then click on the next. Now, important thing here. You see this next button? Don't click on that until I tell you to click on it, okay? Because we're going to go a few steps before we click on next. But I have experienced that people click on this before I want you to, and then it becomes a little bit complicated getting back to what we want to do, okay? So the first thing we have to do here is actually also choose our root object. So in standard Salesforce, we start from the top and we go down. In Einstein Analytics, we want to take the lowest level. We want to have the lowest grain. So in this case, we're going to create a data set on opportunities. So our lowest level will be our opportunity object. And then we'll add in account, and we'll add in some owner information as well. So go ahead and search for opportunity and select opportunity. You'll now see here that this is our root object. So this is our lowest level that we're starting with, and now we're going upwards in the hierarchy. So what we want to do here is you hover over, you'll see there's this little plus. So go ahead and click on that, and we're going to be adding some fields. So these are all the different standard and custom fields. If we had any custom fields in here, they will be available. So what we're going to do is we're going to first find name, opportunity name, and we're going to select that one. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the amount field, so name and now amount, and I'll repeat it afterwards just so you know.
Sorry, what was before this one?
Name first and then amount. Okay? Yeah, so opportunity name. And then we're going to take opportunity type, so I'm just searching for type and then selecting opportunity type. So we have 3 fields collected or selected. So we're now going to do close date. So select that one.
What was after amount?
Amount, opportunity type. So search for type. And then we're going to have close date, and we're also going to have created date. So select created date as well. Okay? For now, this is all we want to take from the opportunity, but do not click next yet because we want to do one more thing. So what I selected, if you didn't get it, was name, amount, stage. Let me just make sure I have it. Did I say stage? No, I didn't say stage, so we want to take stage as well. Sorry. I'm glad I said that out loud, so that's going to be difficult later on. So make sure you have stage as well. So name, amount, stage, opportunity type, close date, and created date. Okay? So notice now I have this relationship. This is all the different relationships that we have. So go ahead and click on the relationship tab. And we're going to select two ones here. We're going to select the account ID, and we're also going to select the owner ID. Okay? So you'll now notice we're going to have two more branches coming out where we can select fields from. So what we want to do is if you just click on the canvas and drag down, then it's going to be a little bit more centralized. And we can then go ahead and hover over first our account and click on the plus. Okay? So now again we have all the different fields here that we can select. And here we're going to be taking account name. Okay? We're going to be taking industry. And then also account type.
Sorry, do you just search, go back to field and search?
Yeah, I just double click and then I just retype. That's the fastest way I find. You can scroll through it, but then you kind of have to scroll a lot, especially if you have a lot of fields. Yeah, so I took account name, I took industry, account type, and billing country. That's the next one. On the account object. Okay. So this is the first object we're pulling in, and then we pulled the two other ones in, and so now we're selecting for the second, for the account object. And I think I got to billing country. We need to have billing country in as well. So here. So account name, industry, account type, and billing country. So you'll notice that we have eight fields. What does it? Yeah, 8. Sorry, it's really tiny on my screen. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit here. We have 8 fields here. We have 4 fields in our account object. And then now we're going to select something for our user object. Okay, so hover over and click on the plus. And we are going to just select one field, which is the full name. Okay? So did everybody get 8 fields from the opportunity? Do you have the stage on the opportunity? So hover over it and click on the plus for the opportunity. Cool. Awesome. So we have 8, we have 4, and we have 1. Everybody got that? In account. So what we're having in account is account name, industry, account type, and billing country. Great. Amazing. So this is the magical moment. We can click next. So go ahead and click on next. Now, what we have to do here is we have to go ahead and select the app that we just created, and we're going to put it in that. And then we're going to click on Create Dataset once you have that. So select your app and then click Create Dataset. So what's happening now is our data set is being put in queue. We're extracting all the data from Salesforce, and we are then flattening the whole relationship model, or the relationship between the different objects, and we're putting it into one flat file. So what you'll see here, it does take a little while. So if you go back here to the data manager up in the top, you can see that in the data monitor, you can see that my default data flow here is running. It's going to take about 2 minutes because we have not enabled something called data sync. But you can always click on the plus here and see how far we're getting along. And what you can also do is just, you need to refresh your data. So up here in the top, that's where you want to, just click and make sure, hey, are we done now? But while we're waiting, I just want to explain a few things in this default data flow that we have. So remember, that's where we selected all the objects that we want to put in. Now, what you see here is what we call the data flow that is doing all the tasks that we wanted to do. So we first selected the opportunity object, right? That's right here. This is a digest node in our data flow. Now, the next thing we did was we also selected account, and we selected the user object. And we picked different fields. So each of these nodes are including all the fields that we need. And then the second thing that we're doing, and this is, we didn't actually set this up, but this is by clicking on the relationship. What happens is we're creating an augment. And augment is saying, hey, take me on my opportunity and join it together with my account information. Then we have another augment node here that is taking it from our, taking this as the source, so what we already had combined with our account and opportunity information, and it's now saying, hey, add some user information into it as well. The final thing we always have to do when we're working with a data flow in order to get a data set is have a register node. So the register is what's actually creating our data set. So this is where if you want to make any changes going forward, you have to go into the data flow and do that. Or I'm going to show you something as well we can work on. So let me just go back to the data manager and figure out if I spoke enough to actually have it successful. Hopefully yours is successful as well. If you go up to the data manager, up in the top left corner, and then just hit the refresh button over in the right corner and make sure it's successful. Everybody had theirs run? We're all successful? No? Is it still running? Okay, so this is on your user. Hold on, we're just going to go back to the data flow. Let's see if it works. So just running it again. Chris, do you mind helping, just making sure he's... So let's see if it's running. There's something on the here. This one failed. It's like it's not available. I'm trying to run it again to see if it's still an issue. Around this, just can we just yeah, if we can just wait a little bit with those, then that would be great. It depends what the question. If it's more like technical around how it works, then I would rather wait. Okay. Cool. So what we want to do now is we want to create a recipe. So a recipe is a way to actually go in and do transformations to our data set. We can do some of these in the data flow as well, but in this case, the recipe is just way more UI friendly. So that's why I thought let's have a look at that, because it can solve a lot of things as well. So on our left side, you can see we have the data flow and recipes in the menu. So click that one and hit the Dataset recipe tab. And what we now need to do is we have to click on Create Recipe. So the first thing we have to do is what is our source data set? In this case, it's going to be our MyOps, because that's the one we just created. So go ahead and select that. And we're going to call it something like MyOps recipe. Normally, you'll probably be more creative, but okay. And then go ahead and click on Next. Now, this is the recipe. What you'll see here is a preview of all your data. So all the fields we selected are here. Then you'll also see that we have our transformation panel over here on the left side. So if all the transformations we're doing will appear here, and we can always go back and modify them. And then for each of our columns, we have a little profile over here. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create just a couple of transformations. The first thing we want to do is we want to find our amount. It's usually, when I create this, it's usually all the way in the end. So let's see here, I have my amount column. And if you hover over or click on the arrow we have, then you have a bucket option. Okay, so we're going to create a bucket based on our amount. And depending on if this is a measure or a dimension, so a measure is anything we can calculate on, like a number, and dimension is just a text field. So depending on whether or not it's a dimension, measure, or date, we can do different things. So we're going to do the bucket. So click on that, and you'll see now that we have this little transformation panel down here, or a little bucket option. So we're going to create a new field around deal size. So what we're going to put in is if we have a range that is less than 1 million, then we're going to call this a small deal. It may be a little large, but I checked the data set, and this is where we're going to get some more fun data to work with. So that's why I'm putting there. And you'll notice automatically it's putting in the range here, so that's what we're going to call that for large deal. Okay? That's really all we want to do here. So we're going to go ahead and click on the add over in the right side. And you'll now notice that we're going to have our transformation over here, the bucket that we just created. And you'll also notice we have a new column here, which is our new deal size. By default, it's being called something. If you just click on the column and click on the attributes over here, you'll see it's called amount_range bucket. But we can change that API name, so similar to the Salesforce API name. We can call that deal size. And you can't have any spaces here, so I'm just going to put deal size all in one word. And the field label, we're going to have deal size here as well. There you go. And now you'll see that the column has changed. Cool? So the other thing that we want to do is we want to do something on the stage. And you don't have to follow along right now, but what you'll see here, I just want to prove a point. If I click on my data set and I group by my stage, anybody care to tell me what's wrong here? Anybody has an idea? Start with closed lost, closed one. It's not the order we want it in, right? So we can actually do something to make sure we get it in the correct order, because this is all alphabetically. So what we're going to do in our transformation now is we're going to go ahead and find our stage. For me, it's right here. And we're going to create another bucket. So on the arrow, click on that, and then choose the bucket in the bottom. Okay? So now we're going to go ahead and select. Actually, this is kind of the way I tend to do it is because it has to be actual, like specifically what it's called. So I tend to find up here in my preview where I have something where it says, oh, prospecting. And I just copy that. And that way I'm sure that's a little trick that I tend to do. So I just copy that where it says prospecting. And in the bucket down here, we're going to put 1, and then we're pasting in our prospecting. Now, the other thing we have to do is we have to say what values have to go into this bucket. So in this case, we're just going to paste this prospecting in again here as well. Okay? We can now go ahead and click on the plus, and we're going to add one more. So we're going to find qualification, and we're going to copy that and put 2 qualification. And again, remember to put that number in here. Or not number, sorry, value in the big text area. Cool. Now we're going to add one more. We're not going to call it 3. We're going to call it 4. And there is a reason to my madness, so just bear with me for a little bit. So we're going to call it 4, closed 1. And then, of course, again, you can copy it up here. Sometimes I just find it easier to type. So closed 1. Again, it is case sensitive, so make sure you have it as exactly as it should be. And you probably guessed it, we're going to have a 5, which is closed lost. Okay? And just put closed lost. So now here's the madness. We didn't use a number 3, right? So what you'll see over here is we actually have bucket remaining values. We're going to go ahead and click on that. Instead of others, we're just going to call that 3 proposal. Okay? And then go ahead and click on add. Now we have our new stage field here. Again, it's called stage underscore or stage text bucket. So what we want to do is just go in the attribute section again, and we're just going to call it, I think I put stage sorted. Sorted stage. If I can spell. Here we go. And the same thing in the field name. And there we go. These are the transformations we want to do today. Obviously, have a look around and see what else is possible to do in here. But now we're just ready to go ahead and click on the Create Dataset. Notice now that I have the option over here to give my dataset a name. I can also go ahead and place it in an app. So we're going to put it in the London's Calling or whatever you called it. And you'll also see here all the fields that are checked are being put into our data set. So if there for some reason there are fields that you want to not include, like our old stage field, we could unselect that and then it wouldn't be part of our data set. So just go ahead now and click on continue. We're just keeping all the fields and then we're good to go. We do have to say, do we want to schedule this or we just want to run it one time? And we're just going to run it now. So just keep the no run this time only and click on run recipe. It takes about 19 seconds. Yes, I did this exercise. So last time I checked, it took like 19 seconds. But if I go here to the monitor, you can go ahead and click on, you can see it's already running. And if I click on the refresh, then hopefully in a little while, that should be available. Oh, 16 seconds this time. It was faster than last time I ran it. So I was up here in the data manager. And if you just go ahead and refresh, you'll see if it's actually been successful. If you actually created it and ran it. Are you okay? You're missing something. So you go click on the monitor.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Oh, there.
You see it's successful. Amazing. Cool. So we're done with the data side for now. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be heading to our Analytics Studio. So go up to the gear icon here, and you'll see the option to select your Analytics Studio. Okay? So go ahead and click on the Dataset tab, because now we're going to have a little bit fun with XMD, Extended Metadata. And go ahead and click on your MyOps recipe. I got to this Analytics Studio. Are you here in the Data Manager?
Yep.
Click on the gear icon, Analytics Studio.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. So what we're going to do is we're clicking on the MyOps data, and you can see a new lens is open. So a lens is just visualization, single exploration of our data set. So I'm just going to do the, let's say I'm just going to change this to sum of amount. You don't have to do this. This is just so when we're going along, you can actually go ahead and see what is changing. And I'm also going to choose my sorted stage. And the final thing I have to do, again, you don't have to do this. This is just so you can see why I'm doing different things. Choosing a chart, not the best one for this illustration, but I'm going to do a donut chart, because then I get the colors. So now you'll see what I want to do. Now we're going to click on the fields symbol here. And what we have to do is notice that, for instance, over here to my left, you'll see I have account ID.name. This is what the end user will see. This is not very useful. It can be a little bit confusing. So if you just click on account ID.name, you can actually go ahead and remove the ID dot, put in a space, and what will happen now is you can see that the label has changed. So me as an end user will now see account name, not account ID.name. So XMD is actually changing our visual, the visuals of our data set. Okay? So this is something you want to do just for those fields that you bought in a relationship. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to do find the states, the sorted states that we created. So for me, it's right down here. And so we're not going to go through all of these and changing the IDs, but hopefully you get the point of cleaning up your data set. So what we want to do now is next to our sorted stage, there's a arrow. We're going to click on that, and we're going to click on the edit values. So you notice that we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, not 6, we just have 5 in this case. We want to get rid of the numbering, but we want to keep the order. So this is actually a brilliant way of doing this. So we can just click now on the prospecting. We can remove the 1, do the same for qualification, all the way down. Shouldn't take that long. There we go. And now you can see that we have removed this. It's not here yet because I haven't saved my changes, so bear with me for a little bit and you'll see all the changes are coming through. Now, the other thing that I want to do is notice here for my closed one and closed lost, well, for all of them actually, I have like a little color picker. These are blank now, so that means that it just takes a random color. But maybe for the one, I want to click on the green color. So every time I'm using a show my one, it's going to be green. Okay? And the same thing for closed lost. I can go ahead and make all that red. Okay? So I can do that for all of them. I can define every time I use this data set, what color do I want to use. Cool. So the next thing that I want to do is just click on this little arrow up here to go back to our fields. And I'm just going to hit save so you can see that what we did actually does have an influence. So I'm just going to save it again. And now you can see I have green and I have red. And I also have removed my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? The next thing we want to do is we want to scroll down. There's one thing down here that is our amount, our measure. So we're going to click on the arrow next to our measure. And if you can't find it, remember, you can see there's a search field up here, so that sometimes makes it easier as well. And what we're going to do is click on that arrow, and we have this number format. We're going to do a custom number format, because wouldn't it be nice if it said pound symbol in front of it? So click on the custom format. And what I always do is I just pick one of the predefined. You can see there's one here with a dollar symbol. So I'm just going to select that one and go up here and remove the dollar sign and put in my pound instead. Okay? And then go ahead and click done once you've done that. Okay? So just up here, click on done. If you want to hit save now, that's where you do it. And save again. Now you'll see in the background all the changes I had before, but also now I have the pound sign in front of it. Okay? Of course, if you are using multiple currencies, do not use that, but because this is kind of predefined. Cool. So make sure you have it saved. And then a little counterintuitive, but you're going to click cancel afterwards, and we're going to exit this screen. But hopefully this shows you how you can actually modify your data set, the visuals of your data set, so that is going through in all your dashboards. So now the exciting moment has come. We're going to create our first dashboard. So we're going to go back to, you can just close this down. You don't actually need to save it. And if you go to create up here in the top right corner, click on that, and then choose a dashboard. Now, we can create a blank dashboard. Everything is blank, of course. We're just going to be creating everything from scratch, or we can use one of our dashboard from template. We're going to select the dashboard from template this time because it's actually a really cool way to get a quick start, and it's also a cool way to get some cool layouts, because we have had a lot of smart people figuring out how does dashboards, how are they best or intuitive and good design and all that. And so sometimes it's good to kind of see what's going on in here and start from that. So we're going to click on the template. And you can see these are the different ones. Notice I have some of them are called smart here. What that means is there is like a little guide taking us through a few steps, asking some questions, and then you actually get a bunch of charts already. You can also take those that are not smart. They're more like predefined structure of your dashboard. So in this case, we're going to do a fun one, which is actually new, I believe, in spring. So we're going to click on the table expansion. And we're going to play a little bit with pages as well, which gives a cool effect. So make sure you have this one selected, and then click on continue. Okay? So what we have to do now is we have to first select the data set. So we're going to select the data set that we created from the recipe. So if you select this option, it should be, well, for me, it's the first one. Now, it comes, the next thing we have to do is choose the dimensions. Everybody with me? Yeah. The next thing we have to do is choose the dimensions. It's important which order we add it into, because you see these small donut charts here? The first two are going to be put into those. And then the rest is going to be added in here in our table down here. So make sure you select first the deal size in the dimension. So you can just search for deal size. Select that one. And the other thing that we have to do is the opportunity type. Select that one. And then we're going to do name. So that's your opportunity name. Not the account name, but just the one that is called name. We're also going to take actually account name after that, so select that one. We're then going to take the stage that we just modified, so the sorted stage. Okay? So deal size, opportunity type, name, account name, sorted stage, and let me see, what else did I want us to do? Billing country as well. So we have 6 selected. Now we're going to go ahead and choose our measure. That's going to be easy because we just have one. So just select that one. The last one was billing country. Yeah. Yeah, account ID.billing country. Not very nice, but you can go in and change that in the XMD, of course. So select amount. And in the choose date, we're going to select the close date. Okay? So now go ahead and click looks good, next. And now we have to give our dashboard a name. So again, London's Calling is the easy way to, for me just to remember, come up with some name on the spot. And we're going to put it in the app that is called London's Calling as well for me, or whatever you called it before. And then click on next. So we already got a cool dashboard, right? So this is the dashboard editor. And this is the canvas that we see the preview. Over to our left is all the different widgets that we can use. So have an exploration of like different ones that you can drag into your dashboard. We're going to use 1 or 2 from over here. The other thing you'll see is over here we have steps. So steps is basically the logic we have behind each of our visualizations. So it's going to be a grouping, so something like group by close date. And it's going to have a measure like amount. Okay? And you can also see up here I have 2 pages. And if I just hit the preview button, so we have this little preview, the little eyeball, click on that, then you can actually see this is how people will see your dashboard. If you click here on the open, you can see this is the cool thing about this dashboard. We're switching between our different pages. But everything here is, intactable. So we can click on, let's say, a deal size, and you can see things are starting to change. Maybe even select a year and so forth. So this is really the cool thing about Einstein Analytics. It's all reacting. We call it faceting. Now, of course, we don't want to have just this dashboard. We want to go ahead and modify. So if you clicked on the preview mode, go ahead and click on the pencil. So we go back into edit. And we're going to do a few things in here. The first thing we're going to do is, of course, change our name. So it's not going to be amount and profit summary. We're going to call it, maybe I'm going to be London's calling, maybe rocks, exclamation point, or whatever you want to call it, my first dashboard. Cool. The next thing we're going to do is, you see this chart here, I want it to be a different chart. So there are different ways of doing it, but now when we already have it, we can actually just double click, and we're taking into the explorer of this specific step or this specific visualization. Now, we're going to do one of the things that I really find is really powerful with Einstein Analytics. We're going to create a compare table. Compare tables are amazing for anything calculations. So if you've been working with standard reports in Salesforce, you'll see that you can also create formula fields, but it's a little bit more limited. Here we can actually do a lot of powerfulness. So we're going to have a look at a compare table. We're going to look at how is my amount changing from one month to another. So a typical example that you want to look at. So the first thing we're going to do is in the bars. So that's actually our grouping, but because we're showing a bar chart, it says bar. So in here, you're going to take close state still, but instead of having year, we want to select the one that is year month. Okay?
Sorry, what did you click on? How did you get the year?
The year month, here. So I click here. Is that where I lost you?
Yeah, because then it doesn't.
Yeah, click on the bars, and then click on close state, which is the first one, and then you select year month. Okay, so just select year month right here. Got it? Cool. So the next thing we want to do is we want to switch over to our compare table. So up here in our right side, you see we have the table mode. Go ahead and click on that, and then click on the compare table. Okay? So what we want to do here is we want to add one more measure. So what you see is we have our close state here, and then we have our sum of amount. We want to keep our sum of amount, but we want to add one more column, which is what is the percentage change. So what we're going to do is on the amount, you can see there's a little drop-down arrow. We're going to click on that, and we're going to edit this column. Okay? Now notice I have a little plus sign over here on my right side. Click on that so we actually add one more column in. Now this one is just going to default to count rows. It doesn't really matter because we're going to go over here and we're going to change it all up. So in the column header, we're going to call it POP, for period over period. And we can go ahead and type in our, a formula ourselves if we want to in this box down here. But what we want to do is we want to use one of the predefined functions. So notice these are all the different options I can select. We're going to do the period over period, but I would encourage you to kind of play around with the different options when you leave the sessions today. So click on the period over period. You'll now see that it's actually defaulted to all the right selections we want. We want to choose from our column A, that's the only one. Month over month is what we want to compare, and we want to have the percentage change. The only thing we do have to do is the format down here. Instead of showing it as a number, we want to show it as a percentage. Cool. So go ahead, once you have the selection, hit on apply. And you'll see that your column B is changing, right? Everybody got that? Quick way of doing calculation, very powerful, okay? So always when you think of anything calculations in Einstein Analytics, you may go back to the data layer and do it, but definitely try out your compare tables. They're quite powerful. So what we want to do now is just hit on the close button. Now this is being shown as a table, but of course we can still switch back to our chart mode, and you'll see the chart. Now I don't want this chart here. I actually want to go over to the chart section over on the right side. So the first with the little bar symbol. And I'm going to do two suggested charts. I'm going to let Einstein Analytics suggest a chart for me. I know I've done this a few times. There's going to be a combo chart down here that looks something like this. I clicked on the bar chart over here, and then up here there's the two tabs. Suggest a chart, yeah. And sometimes this is the easy way to just change your chart to something a little bit more fun, and also challenge you to not always use the pie or the bar chart. So we're going to do the combo chart, and there we go. So we can now go ahead, once we've selected that, go ahead and click on Update. So now your dashboard should look a little bit different. So we're going to hit Save, because it's when we're working with the browser, we want to make sure that we're saved on a regular basis. So you can either go up here and click on the Save, or you can just hit the S key on your dashboard, or on your keyboard. Cool. So this is the first thing that we wanted to do. Now the second thing we want to do is up here we want to have a few more number charts. I could, over from my left side, pull in my number, but what we're going to do is we're going to clone the existing, because what that will allow us to do is we also have the formatting, the colors that's already done for us. So sometimes that's easier to do, especially when we're modifying existing dashboard. So go ahead and click on the number underneath the revenue. And notice down here in the bottom, I actually have this move at and 4 icons. We're going to select the one with 2 squares, which is the copy widget. Okay? So select that one, copy widget. And you'll see now down here that I actually have a new widget, and I actually also have a new step, which was our logic that we saw over on the right side. So I'm just going to take this one, and I'm going to drag it up next to my bar chart here, so something like this. And let's just, for good sake, just take the revenue and do the same thing. So also copy that text. Again, it's just so we have the colors and all that. And we're going to drag that up and top as well. I'm just going to resize the text because that's way too much. I'm just going to resize that a little bit. So what I clicked was just one of the widgets. And then you see down here. Yeah, the revenue, just on top of it. So on the revenue, click on the new revenue that you created and dragged up. We're going to call this year to date. Okay, so we want to see what have we actually done year to date. So the next thing we want to do is, of course, double click on our number so we can go in and make the modifications. So just double click on the new widget that you created with the number. Here we have the sum of it now. What we actually want to do is apply a filter. So we're going to go ahead up in this section where it says filters, click on that tab, and we're going to click on the plus symbol. Okay? So what we want to do here is we want to click on the close date. And you can then scroll down. There should be like a heading here that is called calendar year, and there should be one that is called current year to current date. Right here. Once you have that, just select that one and hit the Add button. And now you'll see that our lens is being changed, and you can go ahead and click the Update button. And now our number has changed. So we're going to do this one more exercise, but this time we're going to be looking at what was year to date last time in the same period. And the reason we're going to do that is because sometimes the UI doesn't support all what we want. There's something more powerful, okay? We can use SACL, which is our Salesforce Analytics Query Language. I'm not going to do an advanced exercise here. I just want to show you that sometimes we can actually go underneath the hood and do a little bit more. If you want to look at that as well, after this session, you can play around with it. Happy to give you some input on that as well. But I just wanted to give you a sneak peek of it. So we're going to do the exact same exercise. Just take this new number that we created and copy that, and then drag that one up as well, just next to the number we just created. And the same thing with the year to date, just copy that text field and then drag that up. The year to date, we're going to call that year to date LY for last year. Okay? Everybody managed to get that? I'm not seeing nodding, so I'm just going to wait just 2 seconds. Yeah? Good? I can't see your screens, I have to ask. So we're going to click on this number that we just created. So just double click on that. And we're just going to go back to the filter tab that we have. And we're going to change this filter because just above the one we selected, there's another option. I don't remember just by, like, what was it called exactly? Oh, sorry, beneath it. So previous year to date. Okay? So what that means is last year up until current day. So we're going to select that and click on Update. Now, this wasn't what we wanted. We wanted to have from last year. So what we can do is notice up here where we clicked on the Compare table before, next to it, we have the SACO mode. Okay? Don't be scared of this. Because all we did was first, we're loading in our data set, right? So we're using MyOps recipe. So that's our load. Then we're adding in our filter. So that's the filter we just selected. We're putting in a group. We actually didn't do any grouping here, so that's why it's group by all. And then we have to project what we want to show, which is basically just our amount. And then finally, just by default, it comes in with a limit. Okay? All we want to do here is right next to, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. Right next to where it says current day, in the second line, just before the double quote, you put in a space. You put in a minus, you put in a 1, and then you type in year, all lowercase. Okay? Now you can hit on the run, and you'll see that it's changing. Okay? We can obviously do a lot more in SACO when you start getting advanced, but I just wanted to give you guys a sneak peek of, you know, it is quite powerful. There's a lot of stuff we can actually do. So once you have that, you can just hit back to the chart mode. Everybody got this? Do I need to stay on the screen for a little bit? No nodding? So I'm thinking we're good?
So I don't get the summary of amount on the name.
This one here?
Yeah.
What do you get?
No results.
Oh, it might be because there's no data from that period. If there's no... It's right, so it's just probably because it doesn't have any data in your instance. I mean, it is this trailhead org, so we can't never really guarantee when it's, you know, the dates from. But no results is fine. If it got an error, you would see it's an error. So go ahead and click on the update. And I might have to just zoom out a little bit here again because we zoomed in. So now you can see that we have the new number here. And actually, I created this exercise, I think, last week, and the numbers were about the same. We were actually behind for this year. So in my new org that I created last night, the data is already being a little bit different. So, you know, yours may be different from mine as well. But hopefully that this should all be good. Cool. So we now have done those two changes. So we have a few more things that we want to do. So if we scroll down, actually, let's just hit the S key to make sure we have everything saved. If we scroll down, you'll see here we have our details. Start with deal types, then opportunity type. That might not be the order I wanted in. So we can actually double click on this chart as well. It comes with a warning. It's basically saying we actually have this somewhere else. So just make sure that if you're doing some changes here, it actually it will be applied other places as well. And that's fine. So we're going to click on continue. And notice over here to my left, this is where I have all the columns, okay? I can add more in with the pencil, or I can just do the reordering by maybe taking my name, opportunity name, and drag it all the way up. So you can see it's kind of like changing, just give like a selected, like a border around where it's supposed to be placed. And I can also do that maybe for my account name. So basically, I can go ahead and shift things around how I want to see it. Yeah.
Lost the step where you got to that.
OK, so all I did was I double-clicked on my chart, or in my table. Just double click and then click on continue. And then you can just reorder. So it doesn't really matter which order you have here. I just really wanted to show you guys that you're not stuck with what you see in this templated dashboard. And we can then hit on update. And you'll now see that everything has changed down here and having the new order that we wanted. So let's hit on the S key again. So we're saving. And we're now going to do, we're first going to resize our text container because we're going to add in a few selection options up here. So if you click on your text container or text widget, you can see we can just resize that. So resize it all the way in. And what we want to do also is here in the tab up here with the second page, you're going to click that one, and you're going to resize this as well. Okay? So we're actually resizing both of them. Okay? And then go back and click on the default. We want to be on the default screen afterwards. Let's just make sure that we have small text container. So the next thing we want to do is we want to have a list widget. So over to our left side, you can see it's the bullet point list. We're going to take that and drag it up to the white space up here. Okay? And we're going to click on that. And the first one we're going to select is opportunity owner. So that's owner ID.name, I believe. Yeah, right here. So we're going to select that one. And then click on create. Now if I select here, just make sure my widget is highlighted. You can see the title over here on the right side. This is the different formatting we can do. I'm just going to go ahead and well, actually, let's delete all of it and call it sales rep. So it's not that like weird name. Doesn't make any sense. One more thing I want to show you. Notice we have our widget tab and we also have our step tab. So widget is all the visual display. The step is the logic behind it. So if we click on the step now, you'll see that down here I have a selection type. I can actually go ahead. Is the end user able to select just one at a time? Can they select nothing? Or can they maybe select multiple? Or does one thing has to be selected as a minimum? So you can go down and do the required ones as well. We're just going to change it to multiple selections so we can select multiple sales reps. We're going to do this exercise one more time. So we're going to take over from our left side the list widget and going to drag it over next to our sales rep. And this time, we're not going to click on the add list. We're going to click on the create step. Okay? The reason I'm doing this is basically just so you can see there are two ways of creating your steps. You can either click on the widget that you want, or you can just click on the create step. Choose what data set you want to use. So in this case, we want to use MyOps recipe. And we're going to now go ahead in the bars. We're going to select sorted stage. Okay? For some reason, it's still keeping this. It should actually do the correct. It might have to refresh and then it's fine. But anyway, it doesn't matter in this case. So the next thing we want to do is always good practice is renaming your step, because when you start doing the more advanced stuff and you have 50 steps and you're trying to find the right step you're working with, it can be kind of hard to find it. So we're just going to call this stage. There's probably a better naming convention, but in this case it's fine. And let's then go ahead and click on the done. So you can now see we have our stage step over here to our right in this list of our steps. So we're going to take the stage and we're going to drag it up until the list widget so it turns bright blue or light blue, whatever that color is. There you go. And we're getting actually the same option here. So now we can change our title. So instead of having sorted stage, we're just going to have stage. And maybe we'll go over to our step tab up here and do multiple select as well. You don't have to do this, but it kind of depends on what you want to have happen in your dashboard. Cool. So let's go ahead and click on the Save button, the S key. Yeah?
Is there
So this will be dimensions. So if you want to do like measures, you wouldn't be able to do that. You would have to convert it into a measure. But if you...
What about formulas? Like, can you use formula fields in there? Because in normal reporting, Salesforce reporting, you cannot use
if it's part of your data set as a dimension, yes. Yeah. Or you can create a... you could technically also create a derived dimension, but that's going to be a little bit more complex to do. But you could technically do that as well. Cool. So the next thing that we want to do, just looking at my list here, is so we created these new things. We created our year-to-date, our numbers, year-to-date last year, and our two new lists here as well. If we look at the grid expansion tab up here, and I go over here, you'll see those have not actually been added to it. So we want to add those over. So the easiest way, and I'm sorry, I don't actually know what this is on a PC, probably Control, but for a Mac it's Command, and you can actually select the different ones that you want to add over. So just hold your Command, I think Control. Yeah, Control. Sorry, it's been a while since I worked with a PC. So select these different fields, and then down here you'll see I have this move at. I want to click on that, and I want to add them to the page. And I'm going to select the grid expanded and hit on apply. Now we know we've gone to the grid expanded, and you can see down here in the bottom is where we have our new selections. We want to, of course, move them. So again, you can do the same thing. Just select everything with the Command and Control key. And then you can, I think that wasn't selected. There we go. And then you can drag this up. Just make sure it's somewhat the same space so it looks nice. So I think probably something like this. And there you go. And then hit the S key once you're done. Okay, everybody got this? Yeah? No? Cool. So what we want to do is we're just going to go back to our default tab. And we actually want to clone this tab or this page now. So next to default, click on the drop-down arrow and clone this, this page. Okay. So now you'll see we have our clone. So we're going to click on the drop-down, and we're going to rename this. And you can rename it to anything. I'm just going to call it countries. Because the next thing we want to do is we want to create a create a new page where we can actually see a map instead of our period over period here. So go ahead and click apply, and you'll now notice that we have exactly the same between default and countries. So nothing is really changing, but make sure you're on your country tab. And what we want to do is just click on this period over period chart. Notice up here in the top right corner, I have the fact that this is being used on multiple pages. So if I make any changes here, it will apply both pages or both places. We don't want that to happen. So go ahead and click on the Unlinked tab. Okay. Now, the next thing we have to do is we just want to click one more time if it's not already selected. And down here, in this where you copied before, you also have 3 dots. We want to remove this step, okay? So make sure you remove that step. We can now go ahead and click on the Create Steps because we want to have a new step we want to drag in. We're going to again choose the MyOps recipe, and we're going to call this Countries. And we're going to change count of rows to sum of amount. And then we're also going to change the bars to be countries, or billing account ID.billing country. Now, the next thing we will do is, actually, let's just go ahead and click Done. So we have now our new country step over here, right? We're going to drag that in. And you'll get a little error down here because what we had before had more dimension and measures than what we have now. So it's like a little confused. It can't use this chart that we have selected. But we can, if you click on it, you can see we have a little chart type here. So we select that icon, and there should be a map. So select the maps. Okay?
Mine is grayed out.
Yours is grayed out?
Yeah,
Can't really see. Can you, sorry. Can we just want to select the, I'm not sure if this is, I don't think this has an effect, but let's see.
What do you think it's there? So what did you just remove something that I didn't remove?
I just removed it and changed it back, so I'm not sure exactly what would, but anyway, you got it now, right? We're all back. Okay, so hopefully everybody got the map selected. There's one more thing that is actually kind of cool. Once I got a hallelujah for this, but that was in America, but anyway. So down here on the map, you can see if you scroll down, we have this map tab. So click on that. And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and do an auto zoom. So we're not going to do this today, but just be aware we can actually go in and create like custom maps and everything. And you will be able to select the different map types in here. So we have some predefined, and then if you create your custom, they will be in here as well. But for now, we're just going to keep with world countries. It's all good. So make sure you now hit the save key. So the thing is, how do we get back between the different pages? We have to go in and we have to add a link. So over on our left side, there should be a link button with the link key here. We're going to drag that over. I think I'm going to put it right here. So a little bit, just above my map. And we're going to click on that, and we're going to call it sales overview. No, over time. Sorry, that makes more sense. Sales over time. And instead of linking to a lens, we're going to select the page in layout. So link to page in layout. And we're going to choose the default page in the option down here. Okay. Now, we can also go ahead and change the text style. So for all of your different widgets, you're going to have different properties you can go and change. So always go and play with it, see what's possible. But in the text style, I'm going to go ahead and choose this gray color here. It's going to be a little bit hard to see, but I'm also going to go down into widget style. And I am going to change the background color. This is a little trick. If you don't remember the specific color, you can always go to the custom. You can type in what you want. In this case, I'm just going to do a little trick, which is take the transparent bar and go all the way over. That way I don't have to remember the code. Okay? Yeah. So these are some of the different ones we can do. So now what we want to do is just go back to your default tab. Okay? And we want to go ahead and, sorry, actually, go back to the country because we want to add this as well because it's not there yet. So go back to country, click on your link widget that you just created, and then click on the Move Add button, and then add to page. We're going to add it to the default page, not the grid expanded, just the default page. And hit on Apply. Okay. So now we are on our default page. Just you can check that up here, always in a tab. And what we want to do is make sure your link widget is highlighted. And you'll see again we have this link and unlink. But on this page, it doesn't really make sense to have a link to sales overview because we're already here, or sales over time, sorry. So what we want to do is make sure we unlink it by clicking that little unlink button in the top right corner. And now we can go and say sales by country, maybe. Instead of having it pointing to the default page, we're going to point it to our country page, right? Which I can actually see now I spelled wrong, but oh well, we get it. And we hit on the save key now. Okay. So if I now go to preview, yeah. So in the link to, we still keep the page, but we're in the page. We're selecting the countries instead, and then we just rename it. So now if I go to preview, you can actually see that I can go ahead and do different selections. Maybe I want to see for specific states, for prospecting. I can go back to, let's see, my sales country here. You can see how it's now zooming in with the auto zoom. Maybe I want to look at a specific sales rep, and you can see it's zooming in even further. So that's the effect of the auto zoom we had before. Further, you can also see, oh, now I only have one, so I can open those detail, and I can actually go ahead and get some more information. And if I had a longer list, it would be nice to kind of have this. Now we only have one. This is still you know, just a trial org. But in real case, hopefully they have more than one opportunity in prospecting stage. Cool. So what we want to do is, wouldn't it be cool if I hover over here and I can do some actions? So make sure you have saved your dashboard because we do need to do a refresh after this. So just hit the save key, the S key. And what we want to do is go to the Analytics Studio tab. Okay? Next to your My Ops recipe, if you're in the Dataset, if you're not, you can go up here to the Dataset tab. You can see we have this arrow over to the right side. You can click on that and you click on Edit. Okay? So what we want to, this is all like the details, like when was it last refreshed, what is the API name, all these things. But notice we have this little gear icon on it up in the top. We're going to choose that. And hopefully you're familiar with Salesforce Global Actions. Yeah? So we're going to apply that now to our opportunity name. So when I have my opportunity name, I want to be able to apply global actions. So we're going to find the name. So for me, it's right here. So I'm going to select the name. And we now have to say, when we select that name, what is the ID we want to open? So that's going to be our opportunity ID. Okay, so it has to be in a data set. So select opportunity ID. And the next thing we have to do, or we can do, we're not going to do this in this case, but let's say we were opening up, we had multiple opportunities with the same name. And sales was like, which one should I open? Should I open this one or that one? It'll come up with a pop-up window, and it will have the IDs. That's not very helpful, so we can go ahead and say, what are the display fields? So what columns do we want to show from our data set about this opportunity? So we're not going to do that here, but just know that's a helpful thing to add in. We're just going to check these two boxes with open Salesforce record and perform Salesforce actions. So check those two. And then hit the save key. Okay? That's all we have to do. So now we're going back to the dashboard we have. And again, just make sure that you have this saved. If you're unsure, you save the one again. Because what we have to do now is we have to hit refresh, okay, in order for this to kick in. This is a browser, so we need to make sure we're loading our data set again. So click on the refresh button and load your whole page. And now, if I wanted to look for this specific opportunity, notice I have my arrow. I can click on that, and there we go. I have all my Salesforce global actions. I can open this record up in Salesforce. I can post to Chatter, create tasks, whatever I want, okay? So as long as you can have custom global actions as well. As long as they're global and related to this object, then you're all good, okay? So one more thing that we just want to do on our dashboard, I just want to show you, we're not going to do too much with it, but if you click on the Edit button, now notice we have this default page up here. You can see these are the different layouts we have of our dashboard. So if I click on mobile, you see how everything is changing. Now, this has been modified, so maybe you want to go in and do some changes afterwards as well. And also, if you click on the tablet, you can see these are some of the different, layouts that we have. I will always recommend do this as a very last step, because if I make changes, now I have to go and do it in all my dashboards. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and let's say we're going to go click on the Manage Layout. And this is where we can go in and generate more if we want. I just want you to, sorry, actually, we need to go back to our default first. So just click out and then go back to your default layout. And then you can click on Manage Layout. And then just do me a favor and delete the tablet one. Yes, just delete it. Because we are now going to go into Salesforce, and we're going to go ahead and embed this. And I don't want it to be the tablet format that comes. I want it to be the default. Okay? So just close that down. Make sure you save it again. And what we want to do is go to the app launcher up here. And we are now going to go to sales, service, something like that. As long as you get to the home page of your Salesforce core. This is always where I get a little bit nervous, because I am not working so much more in core, so you guys might have to help me out here. But up here in the top right corner, we have the setup, and we're going to click on the edit page. Okay. So we can, of course, go ahead and maybe change the layout, as you probably know. So I'm just going to move these two over. You don't have to do that. And I'm going to delete these two here. I just want to make sure on my left side, I just want to have my dashboard. So what I want to do is over here to our left side, this is one of the legacy things. So Einstein Analytics Wave, that's kind of the same thing. But we still have a Wave dashboard over here. So a Lightning component that we're going to drag over. We're going to do on top of this existing one we have. And by default, it should go to the one that you just created. But if not, you can just go ahead and select the dashboard you want on the right side. You can change the height. I think I'm going to put in 1,000. I think that should work. I'm going to unselect some of these options here. So, yeah. Notice I can also apply a filter. We're not going to do that here, but if you were embedding this on an account page, maybe you just want to look at that specific account. So we can go in and add a filter as well. Wave dashboard. It's the last one, very last one in the end. And I'm also just going to delete this bottom one we have. There you go. It's not really relevant. Okay? So once you have this, you're going to hit on the save. And we have to go ahead and activate this. So click on the activate. And we're going to assign as org default. Again, this is just because this is a brand new org. We have to go ahead and do this. And then just go ahead and click save. Just make sure you have gone through these steps. I don't actually know if we have to do that, but I'm going to hit save again just to make sure I'm all good. Now I'm going to go back to my page. So up here, click on the back button. I don't think it's showing up right away. We do have to do a refresh. So just refresh the page. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, we have our dashboard. And there you go. And all the same features we had before, we can go ahead and click, select, open our details up, We have our actions. All of those things are or still works within our embedded dashboard. I have one more thing, which is a little bit more advanced. So if you're up for it, you can just follow along and see what I'm doing. But if you're up for it, please follow along. So we're going to go back into analytics, and we're going to go back into the data manager. I just want to show you that there is, again, some more powerfulness to our platform. So click on the tabs, the app launcher, and the analytics studio. Now, we want to go to our data manager. So you can either click on the gear icon up here, or you can click down here on the left side, data manager. We're going to open that one up. Now I want to go to my data flow and recipes, okay? And I want to select the default Salesforce data flow, okay? Now these are the different flows that we have within our our dashboard, or sorry, data flow. If I just drag the screen down, this is the one that we created earlier, right? Now I can actually, sometimes when we get to some more advanced stuff, we want to go ahead and do it directly in the data flow, and we can't do it in a recipe, or for some reason we don't want to do it in recipes, then we can actually go in and do some of the same things here. So that deal size that we looked at before, let's try and do that in here as well. So again, if you don't feel comfortable with this, it's completely fine if you just have a look here. But what we want to do is we want to add a compute expression. So similar to a formula. So we're going to click on the compute expression. And one thing we have to remember is, what is our source? What is going to be the source node for? So if you look at this one here, I want to put my compute expression right here, after this one. Okay? So augment underscore user, that's what I want. Oops, sorry, this is... Sorry. There we go. Oh, technology, right? So we're going to click on the compute expression, and we're going to go ahead and call this something brilliant like CE. I would say, again, with the naming, we always have to have a good naming convention. I'm horrible at it. So we're just going to call this CE for compute expression. And this is where we come in with the source. So as we said, that was the augment underscore user. So select in the source, select augment underscore user. Okay? So now we've defined what is the starting point. So now we have to add our field. So we can go ahead and click on the add field, and we have to give it a name. So again, we're going to call it deal size, maybe DF for data flow, not Dreamforce. Just because we already have something that called deal size in a recipe, so just kind of make it know that this is the field that we're working with. Again, just like a formula field in Salesforce, we have to define what is the output. We're going to keep it as a text, and then we're going to go down to this SACL expression. Now, it works a little bit different than the formula fields we have in Salesforce. In formula, there we use, for instance, an if statement. We're going to be using a case statement in Einstein Analytics, all lowercase. Actually, yeah, all lowercase. So we're going to start out with case. That's the first word we're putting in. And this is just a syntax that you kind of learn, like when you're learning if statements. Just you kind of just get used to it. So case when. Okay? We're now going to have a single quote, and we're going to have amount with a capital A. And then we're going to have one more single quote. So this is the API name of our amount. We're going to put in when that is less than. And then we're going to put in the 1 million. We don't need to have anything around here. This is where I have to count the zeros. Okay. Then, typing in then. And then in double quote, small deal. End double quote. We could put in more like when something else. But we're just going to end our statement here. So we're going to put in else. And then in double quote, we're going to put in large deal. And double quote end. And then we have to type out end as well, indicating we're done. Okay? hopefully I haven't forgot anything. Case, when, amount, then small deal, else large deal, end. Okay, great. Now we can go ahead and click on the save and create. And one thing I just want you to know is, like, hover over here, you see there's a trash can. Don't click on the trash can, but next to it we have this little arrow. Click on that and you drag it so you have this little line. And then we're just going to add it up to our register node, because what I said in the beginning, if we don't have a register node after it, we're not actually going to be able to see this in our data set. So just drag it over, and there you go. You can now go ahead and click on the update data flow. And then you will have to run our data flow. Now this will take, as I said, about 2 minutes before. So I'm not going to see the result, but hopefully it's working. If it doesn't work, I will be happy to kind of help out afterwards. But this was kind of what I had planned for the workshop. So I just want to go back to the slides. Okay, so as I said, this was kind of what I wanted to go through, showing you a little bit of sneak peek of all the different things. Now, if you need help, we do have, of course, Trailhead that you can learn a little bit more. But sometimes we need a little bit more. So there is the community. We also offer, the team I'm part of, we offer 30 minutes live or one-to-one sessions. We have academies, as Kate said earlier. So we kind of put all the different resources, including my slides. And also I know we have Skip and Chris in here that are doing sessions later. We also have Colleen that is doing a session later on Prediction Builder. Those slides, we'll put them up on this URL. So have a look in there. Hopefully that should give you a little bit more help. But that's it. Thank you. Questions, if there is any? Yeah.
Just the last one where you created that formula.
Yeah.
Why did you make it to augment user?
The reason I put it in there is because I want to make sure I have the fields before. So I need to have my digest, my SFDC digest. I could, in theory, put it in after the opportunity, because then I have the amount and I can just put it in and join further down. But for me, it's just then I don't have to mess with the augment flow, the augment node after. So I just always find it easier doing it after that. But you need to have the fields out before you can actually do your transformations. Okay, did that answer the question? Sort of. It's kind of hard, like there are different things, like if you're using a filter node, for instance, I would always do it in the beginning, because then you have less data to work with later on in your transformation, and that will make your data flow run faster. So there's different considerations like that. Once you start working with it, you feel like, okay, the augment, it's kind of annoying to work with. Not really annoying, but it's like you have to pay more attention because you have to figure out what is my left side, what is my right side. And if you add it in before that, then you have to go and change those. So that's why I tend to just do it after the augment has been done. That way I don't have to go ahead and modify the left and the right and select fields and stuff like that. Okay? Any other questions? Yeah.
So it looked like at the beginning when you were defining your data set that you had to define all of the data that you were pulling in
Yeah.
To the model. How do you, if you need to change that in future, how do you go about?
Yeah, so, I mean, the biggest problem if you want to have a lower grain, then I would probably just, then you have to go in and add it in afterwards. But regardless, you have to go back to your data flow.
Right.
So you can see here, I could, in theory, add in up here. You'll see I have the option to go ahead and add in SFDC digest, so I can add that in. I can also click on any of these fields, or these nodes, sorry. For some reason, okay. See, I have the select field.
Okay.
I can add the more fields in I want. One thing you have to be aware of is this is going to be a right side on an augment later. That means you have to make sure you propagate your fields coming down, okay? Because else they won't be part of your ending data set. But then it asks you in the UI. So these are some of the things that you can do. Just be aware that anything you do in this node, the SFDC digest, if you're using our data sync, where you also get connectors enabled, if you do that, this goes into that data sync layer. So you don't want to start adding filters and all that, because then you will only ever look at those that data coming through.
Would it be sensible to just load all of the data from a table rather than split it down, just so it's there and available to work with?
Well, every time you add a new data flow or create a new data set with new fields, that is being automatically added into your data sync. So yeah, I don't tend to do it. I mean, it is a cache-free layer if you're using that, but remember that right now we don't have this enabled, so that means it takes a longer time to actually run it. So,
Follow-up.
yeah.
I noticed that there was an option for grouping null fields as well when you're building visualizations. Where fields are, I assume
Yeah.
that's where fields are potentially populated or not populated at all. So they're
I didn't actually see that option, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. But I'll happy to go through in the UI afterwards, so we can just have a look.
really, it just made me wonder, what Salesforce are doing from the point of view of kind of giving us an opportunity to understand what the data looks like, and therefore the likely impact it's going to have on the results that analytics bring back. Because obviously, if you've got loads of blank fields and you're looking at, for example, a conversion rate, that can start to
Yeah.
skew numbers. So
Well, I mean, you can always go in and add, take into consideration the null values, like what should you show if there's a null value. So that you can do in the data flow. You can also create, so you can see, I think there should be one around null values in here. The other one is you can also start doing those kind of transformations in your data set. But essentially, your data will only, or your reports and dashboard will only ever be as good as your data is. So there is some exercise to be done in the data side, and you can do it in the data flow. Yeah. Any other? No? Any other questions? No? Well, I hope you had fun, learned some. So thank you guys for coming.